How's everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore. I'm here with Yvette Carnell, Breaking Brown Your Black World. Antonio Moore from Tone Talks. We're here to talk, talk numbers, talk data, talk black economics. There's been a lot in the news, particularly with Donald Trump. Donald Trump recently said, you're living in poverty, your schools are no good, you have no jobs, 58% of your youth are unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose? And I'm just going to let him actually say it himself. Watch the clip. We'll come back and have a bit of a conversation.
No group in America has been more harmed by Hillary Clinton's policies than African Americans. No group. No group. If Hillary Clinton's goal was to inflict pain on the African American community, she could not have done a better job. It's a disgrace. Something new like Trump. What do you have to lose? I say it again. What do you have to lose? Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
Yeah, so now that we're back, we've had a lot of dialogue about this, and I just want to have Yvette Carnell just introduce herself and say hello to the audience.
I think a lot of people remember I just did something about not having any money a few days ago, so they already know what I'm going to say. So, hey, Breaking Brown family, hey, Your Black World family.
Yeah. And it's a trip because as we enter the conversation, what I just want to start off is I just want to talk data. I've done a couple of pieces on inequality.org, Huffington Post, the Griot, just on hard data, just the numbers of things. So if we look at the black group, there's a total of 14 million black homes. On average, there have 3 people per home. There's 80 million white homes, and on average, it's about 2 people per home. Now, if we look at I'm going to pull up a chart. We've pulled it up before, but just so this conversation has context as you listen to it and can refer back to this chart. If you look at it, to get in the top 5% of black homes, all you need is 350,000 homes. That's it. And so if you look over at the white side, that barely gets you in the top 30%. So we're talking about 23 million white homes with over $350,000. If we come down and we look at 210, 215, we're down at 10% for black homes. So that, there's 14 million black homes. That's 1.4 million out of all the black homes that have over $200,000. And that's still for 3 people, too. Don't forget that. And while you look at the white homes, you're down at 40% now. So if we were to truly look at the middle class, we're looking at $100,000. And at $100,000, almost over 40 million white homes have $100,000 in worth. A mere 25% of black homes have that much. And what we got to also remember is a large chunk of these people are older baby boomers. They're not young, childbearing age, working age people. I wanted to let Yvette kind of chime in, and then we'll come back to have a conversation about it all.
Okay, so I think the problem, and I think it's something that you touched on before, is that black people, when they talk about wealth, they don't know what it means to come from slaves, to have no inheritance, that you can account for, to have no land, and to have no real wealth. The only people that you're talking about who have wealth, aren't even the top 5%, because the middle is, like you said, 350K. That's the middle, middle family. So what you're looking at is like the top 1% of black people who you can say, yes, you're talking about millionaires. What was it, like 35,000 black millionaires?
No, I think that the numbers was there's 14 million homes, so about 140,000 houses. Of 3, though.
Yeah, of three.
And that's hard money, though. That's hard assets. It's not liquid money. That's all in.
It's not money in your bank account.
Yeah, yeah, that's all in. And what's the trip is the numbers are actually boosted. Like that number on those charts that you're seeing. The NYU professor actually came out with data where he showed that the middle black household, when you take out the family car, is really only worth $1,700. So of the 14 million black households, 7.5 million are worth less than $1,700. And again, a large chunk of those are younger people, because they don't get inheritance, because they picked up so much student debt just to try to be part of American society. And they just don't even know their social condition because they live on credit. And if you look at the single black mother, the middle single black mother, according to powerful studies that just came out, it was worth $5. And for us to sit here and not act like we don't understand what Trump said because it doesn't make us feel good is infantile in a lot of ways. I think it's immature. Do I think he said it in the right way? No. I don't think he said it in the right way, but the discussion is happening because he said it, and we weren't having that discussion before. Would you agree?
Well, I agree, but what we should have said, like people say, well, oh my God, he was being condescending and he wasn't really trying to help us. I agree. But what you say when he says that, you say, well, Mr. Trump, you're right. We don't have money. We're an underclass in this country. What are you going to do about it? And then let him give you what he's going to do about it. He probably doesn't have an answer. So then you can damn him on the serious policy failure and say, listen, you pointed out something and then you have no answer for it. You have no cure for us. And then we can have a serious policy discussion. But what we're doing right now is just kind of being emotional because he made us feel bad about being poor. Like, no, I don't want to have an emotional discussion. I don't want to be that person. And so that's how I feel about what Donald Trump said. I just don't want to be that person who can have a serious conversation about where we are and who's going to do something about it. So we didn't even ask the question what you're going to do something about it. We just got upset because he called us out. That's just, and I think you're right, that's not a mature response to what he said.
And I think a large part of it is, and I've discussed this with you on a number of occasions, is the regionality of the black experience. And I think Ferguson and Milwaukee have really exposed that. So by that I mean, you know, a high schooler showed like 2 weeks ago, before Milwaukee actually burst into riots, that if you took the major black population areas in Wisconsin, the whole state, of all the black population areas, the major black population areas, 50% are jails. 100% are either jails or low-income housing. And if you looked at Ferguson, you saw much of the same kind of like issue. So what you see is that across large sections of this country that aren't Los Angeles and New York, and even in Los Angeles and New York, you have sections of that, black people are living as an underclass. But when you go on CNN, MSNBC, when you look at who's at the Emmys or the Oscars, those people are not coming from or living in, better saying, those communities. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I agree. But the people who aren't living in those communities, part of the problem is that they're speaking for those communities, right? So you have black people who aren't living in those communities, really don't want to be associated with those communities, who are basically saying, listen, stop talking about that like that, Trump, because you're making me look bad. As a black person who has money, which is, you know, maybe I make 75, you're making me look bad by associating me with these poor people. And so I think that's part of the problem is that you don't really have a real robust middle class of black people. But the people that you do have who are making a little bit of money are shouting down the truth because they don't want to be associated with poor black people because it makes them feel some kind of way. And so they're doing a disservice when they go on MSNBC and CNN and say that, you know, we're not all poor just because of a situation that they may or may not be in right now. And we even saw Melissa Harris Perry, even if you're in a good situation, we saw her say, you know, when she left MSNBC, listen, I got people to take care of, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I got to figure out when they're going to renew my contract. So even if you are in a situation where you're good, you're not really good. So why? So when I see some people black people, pundits on MSNBC and CNN say this kind of stuff, I realize that what they're saying is detrimental to black people, regular working class black people, which is most black people.
And we're going to get to Angela Rye in this conversation, her statements. And I think fundamentally, it makes me question whether they saying it out of you know, pride or ignorance, meaning they either pridefully want to hide the fact that black America in large part is working poor, or for that matter, they just don't know, which is even worse because they're speaking for us as a people and don't know the numbers. And I think fundamentally, when we look at it, the other issue we're seeing is that the struggles of Generation X and millennial blacks is being masked by the successes of baby boomers from the affirmative action era. Because if you were to break down the data of the top 20% of blacks or the top 5% that have $350,000 hard to get in the top 5%, it's almost entirely like older blacks with pensions and 401ks. And that's not true for white America when you look at the top 35% of white Americans that have that amount because of inheritance and in vitro transfers, which is in-life transfers of wealth that happen so often in the white community. The New York Times, when Trump actually said this, did a piece, and I wanted to share a little section. I'm going to pull it up. and it I guess shows what I'm saying, and it was called Trump's description of Black America is offending those living in it. Mr. Williams, 61, a retired postal employee who is African American, acknowledged that Mr. Trump's remarks described a reality for some blacks, but it was not his reality or that of people he knew. And the fact that those generalizations in which all African Americans inhabit a hell of violence and dysfunction came as part of an outreach effort on Mr. Trump's part elicited from Mr. Williams an incredulous and slightly bitter cascade of chuckles. Who's he talking about? So here we have a group of people where the middle families were $1,700. And he says, who's he talking about? Because what you have also is a group of blacks that only circle amongst each other that might be in the top 5 or top 10% and then separate from the entire rest of Black America beyond family reunions.
Yeah, I mean, you have people who are black people who are vacationing at Martha's Vineyard, talking about who is he talking about? Well, and the truth of the matter is, just like you just said, a lot of these people are older blacks, and they don't know. Like, they don't know that life is different. They have no idea that they came in a window of like affirmative action and government programs that were designed to help them. And so they go around and they tell lies, and they're not. I don't know whether they're intentional lies or, like you said, because they just don't know. But they lie about the condition of Black America, and they make millennials and Generation X's feel bad. Well, you could just do it if you tried harder. Well, you could just do this if you just. Well, you didn't do that. You got affirmative action. You got some government programs to help you. And so for you to tell us that, it just means that you don't understand that life has changed. You don't understand that life isn't like it used to be, and you refuse to learn. And so you sticking around and being a part of the conversation is problematic, because you're not even using the data, you're using your life. And that's not a good way to have a conversation.
No, I totally agree. And one of the other big myths that we see is the black spending power. One of your friends actually has broken that down on the Black Gender Report. And you see this number of $1 trillion in buying power with no kind of metric to have you understand how minimal that is, and how that isn't really money that you save. So I'm going to give you an example. If I go buy a Ford with $200, $700, or even $1,000 down for $40,000, that's buying power, right? But I can't take that $40,000 that Ford just loaned me just to buy a car and buy land instead. It can only be used to buy that Ford. And I think fundamentally we don't understand how much of our money is that way. It's not choice money. It's not money we can say, I'm going to invest in hard assets or let's sit here. It's just money that we can be used for consumer goods to keep the economy moving. And fundamentally, to put it even more contextually, you can't understand that metric without understanding how other groups compare. So I'm going to read a small section from a great article I just read, which says, to put it another way, Asian Americans have 8.2 million employed citizens with a buying power of $718 billion. African Americans have 16.2 million employed citizens with a buying power of $1 trillion. That essentially means Asian Americans have 2/3 of the buying power of African Americans with only half the working population. So the number isn't even a good number from a metric standpoint.
No, it's not even a good number. It's like telling somebody, I have $100,000. Well, if you don't, and I'm gonna start like a car company. If you don't know what it takes, if you don't know what that number actually means in terms of investment, you don't know you can't do it. And that's the thing that's happening in Black America. Like, we don't understand the numbers. We don't understand what the numbers mean and how wealth moves and how wealth is wielded in this country. So we get into this trap of being like, whoa, that's a lot of money. That's a whole lot of money. Well, yeah, it's a lot of money if you win the lottery and you get that as an individual, but as a community of people, it's not a lot of money.
No, I totally see that, and I think that also we don't want to face the harsh realities of our worth versus our income. And for a long time, they gave us income data to kind of calm us down, and they only recently gave us wealth. Wealth only recently started being released for African Americans in the mid-'90s. That's according to Thomas Shapiro of Black Wealth, White Wealth. Well, since those numbers have come out, what we've been shown is that in large part, many black families, particularly many young black families, even the ones that went to school, even particularly the ones that went to school, are worth less than nothing. They're in debt. And so what we're seeing is that they look well, they go to Disneyland, You know, they go to Magic Mountain, they can take a trip across the country to their Louisiana family reunion, but they're in debt. And they're fundamentally unsound with no retirement, no life insurance, and no college savings. But they look like a middle class family. And I think that we don't understand how many truly sound white middle class families there are here and how they were created out of structural help by the government. Things like the New Deal that undergirded the creation of the white middle class that still has so much to do with whites own property, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think blacks have this issue. Like the whole part of the whole problem is the aesthetics with black people. If I see black people that look like $1 million and they're wearing nice clothes and they have a nice haircut, the assumption is black people doing good. And it's like you can't judge black people by how they appear aesthetically. You know, you can get a credit card right now and finance whatever you want to finance. That doesn't mean you have money. You can be in debt. You can finance your vacation on debt. You could save money to go on vacation, like you said, still be negative, still not have any money, still not have any liquid savings in your account. And so that's what we're dealing with, and we're judging people financially based on how they look. Well, these people like $1 million. He drives a Benz. He drives a BMW. That doesn't mean that person is not negative because they're making a car note on borrowed money. But they didn't buy that car outright. You know, we don't know how, you know, white people don't necessarily do that all the time, but they can. Like, tell me how many people you know can just go out and be like, and just buy that if they wanted to.
And I think we're in denial about how flat our race really is, like in terms of like wealth and class. I think we've created a talented tent that doesn't really exist on the economic like spectrum. And so fundamentally, you know, we don't have, you know, when you look at white America, I'm going to pull that chart that I pulled up at the top again, just so you can get context. 10% of white families, of 10%, 8 million white homes have over $1.4 million. You know what that means? That means that they live in whole communities, in Orange County, down in Florida, in Baltimore, in San Francisco, whole communities of other 1.4 or more $1 million white homes. For black homes, that just doesn't happen. For black homes, what you see is that family is amongst white people because they have to be, because the numbers just don't bear out. And I think that the other thing that we don't understand is even when you get into the top, you know, the top 140,000 black homes that have $1.4 million, they're largely mid-tier managers that moved up and somehow bought property and it went up, bought a couple pieces of property and it went up, and also they're largely entirely towards the 1.4. So when I say that, I'm gonna pull up a chart that kind of shows like black and white wealth along a spectrum so you can visually see it. And what you'll see is that the white wealth actually tears all the way up. But you'll see that the black wealth kind of just teeters out and doesn't really peak at all. And what that's showing you is that of the 140,000 black homes that have 1.4, a large chunk, almost the entire group, is at 1.4. There's not this group of 1.4 and then 12 and then 22 and then 100. No, there's one Oprah, one Byron Allen, one Michael Jordan, one Dr. Dre, and we think there's 1,000 of them. And it's funny because I got a chance to talk to Byron. Byron Allen is a billionaire. I don't know what other people are talking about. I'm talking from knowledge. I'm talking from knowledge. Byron Allen is a billionaire, and I got a chance to talk to him. And the reality, and you can see that video on my channel, Tone Talks. And I think that in so many ways, his context of black people being in an economic genocide needs to really be digested by a lot of black people today that are watching this video and that are listening because it's real.
No, I agree that it's real, but you can't digest it if you're living in like an illusion. Like the one thing I keep saying is just like for me, when I listen to black people say, no, it's not everybody. Some of us are doing good. When I listen to that, what I see in my own self, I see like a kid who's playing with a dollhouse. And I know people are going to get offended, but it's just like if you see a little boy, you know, I hate to have these sort of gendered examples, but a little boy playing with G.I. Joe or whatever. You know that boy is not at war. But in his mind and in his imagination, he's at war. He's fighting the enemy. And so that's what I see with black people. They're like, no, we got it, and we're coming up. And it's just like nothing that you're saying is real. Nothing that you're saying actually matches the data. You're just saying something to kind of make yourself feel good. And that's the reaction to Trump. You don't like what he says because it makes you feel bad. It makes you feel like, oh my God, I'm a member of an underclass. I can't believe he's talking about me like that. I've never seen poor people, because it's not just the rich people who feel this way. You see, I saw some poor people interviewed by CNN who I can tell that they're not. These are not upper middle class black people talking about. Well, I don't know why he's talking about us like that. Wait a minute, you're a poor person who's upset that somebody is saying that you're poor. I mean, that makes no sense. But this is all kind of like about self-esteem for us, and that's where the problem. That's where the rubber meets the road.
And you know, and I before I get into Angela Rye right now, I'm going to actually go back to something I've shared with you over last week. New York Times did an article about how black people aspiring to be in the middle class are forced back into living amongst like poverty in so many ways. And so what was interesting, there was a section in the article where this black family, you know, two working class people that are, and it's a trip because they characterize them as though they're upper middle class, but their jobs are really like working poor jobs. But like they're living in this community again, and let me say this about regionality. I live in Los Angeles. To get into the home market is 500,000, and I'm not talking to live in no nice super ritzy area. To live in a super ritzy area, you gotta get into 750s. And I think that what happens is people live in areas where to get into the home market is so close to rent or below rent, so they don't know, like, home ownership is not telling you your class level there like it is here. And so like they feel because I bought $100,000 home, I'm middle class all of a sudden. And they don't understand that your home will never appreciate. And we saw that in Atlanta in an article that came out, I believe in the Post, where these people owned homes since the 90s and they actually depreciated. All the homes in the whole neighborhood, the whole black neighborhood, went from 110 to like 90. So you lost money. You own where you live, but your home is worth less than when you bought it. So nonetheless, in this story in the New York Times, going back to that, their son, Anthony is walking home. He's about 16 years old with a Walmart bag with a doll inside for his sister. A black man, a neighbor of some sort, walks up to him with a rock and says, I want your money or I will bash you in the head with this rock. I'm going to pull the story up so you can read it for yourself. We are there. If that is not what Trump is talking about, then I don't know what you expect. That is some apocalyptic zombie type stuff. Not I'll shoot you with a gun or I'll cut you with a knife. I'm going to bash your head in with this rock. Kid. Think about what he's saying there. You know what I'm saying, Yvette?
And he's a grown man. With the article you're talking about, the grown man goes up to this teen kid and is like, I'm going to bash you in the head. A grown man. There are no rules anymore. And think about it. We've seen riots in Ferguson. We've seen riots in Baltimore. We've seen riots in Milwaukee. We've seen riots all over the country. And you still have black people on TV saying, you know what, it's not everybody. Black communities are in an uproar right now because of what's happening. The only place you don't see as much of that is maybe somewhere like Atlanta, where, like you said, the price is different. You own a home for $100,000, even cheaper than that, given the recession. So you don't feel it as much. But the truth of the matter is, you're seeing these riots.
And what's a trip about it is you don't even know that. See, like in LA, what happened is the houses back. I did the I just got nominated for an Emmy for my documentary "Freeway Cracking the System." Definitely check out the trailer. You can go on the internet. But you know, it's centered around a guy named Freeway Rick Ross. And he bought a lot of houses for the wrong reason in the 80s. But I sat and talked to him in the midst of doing this documentary. These houses were $80,000. So what happened for Black LA is that between 1982, let's even use 86 when the Cosbys come up. Between 86 and 2007 when you see Obama, Black LA was feeling itself. Because $80,000 homes became $420,000 homes. And people were able to use that money to finance vacations, to send their kids to college, and things of the sort. In Atlanta, that won't happen. Your house will not be a bank account. And I don't think you truly understand that until the moment happens. And for some of y'all, it's here already, where the kid is saying, Mom, the school said they got 20 and they need your 20, and you don't have it. And that is the consequence of a legacy of poverty. In no way am I trying to say individually, I put full blame on you, and I'm not trying to make any black person feel bad. But we have to understand our legacy here and what we built here and what we're owed. Not what we need to earn, what we're owed. And I think we've run away from that in a lot of ways.
No, because it's hard. It's hard to say, I'm poor because Black people like to feel like we have choice, right? We like to feel like we have some agency. Well, I can make this happen for myself. I can earn this. I can create this. And no, it's like, no, the way you are where you are now is not something that you let happen. This is what happened when your descendants were slaves. And we still live that. We still live
Followed by Jim Crow.
Yeah, you get with Jim Crow, all of that stuff packed on top of each other just to shut us down all the time. Each time we try to do something, we got shut down, intentionally shut down. So there is a consequence. There's an economic consequence to that you can't work your way out of. But it makes us feel powerless. So we don't want to look at the truth of the fact of, no, you can't do that. And so what we end up doing is telling ourselves these stories that are not true. And I don't want to offend anybody, but like I told you, I saw a news story that said this woman was creating the black Uber, and she was taking kids around. Now I'm sure she has initiative, but this isn't the black Uber. Like, do you understand how much Uber had to scale? Do you understand how much investment that had to be? Do you understand the risk right now with Uber in terms of who you're driving and who's driving you? Like, for you to say that, for you to put that in print and be like, this is the black Uber, just shows how much you don't understand about economics and money and how money works.
No, I totally agree, and we're going to end on black banks when we get to the bottom of this conversation. And, I'm just going to really get a number so everybody can stop talking generally and really understand how faux the idea is. Faux meaning like unreal the idea is of black banks. It just say they exist to make us feel good. And so, what I want to deal with right now is Angela Rye. Angela Rye comes on, she's a CNN commentator, young lady that's been allowed to speak a lot. Some of the stuff that she said I've liked. Some of the stuff I haven't. And one of the things that she said last night, I actually sent out to you, and it's been sparking dialogue on Breaking Brown. And I just want to cut in the video of what she said so that we all get context.
The fact that African Americans are talked about as monolithic entities is, we all need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps when we were barefoot on plantations building this country for free is highly problematic to me. John, it's not about us needing to all be lifted out of poverty. I'm not impoverished, and I have several middle-class friends who are doing very well in this country, and so I reject the notion that we constantly need.
So now that we're on the other side, if we look at what she said, she's basically looking at her individual life, giving no data, no specifics. Like we have a home owned or we have college paid off, but just we look good, so we feel good, so we're good. That means Black America's good. I don't understand what she's talking about.
Well, she's talking about her friends. She's talking about her and her friends. She said, I have friends who are doing well. And that was her quote, doing well. I'm not impoverished. Like, the world is you. And, part of what is a problem is, people like her, women like her, have that sort of ego. And it's like, well, me and my friend, we doing good. Like, what you talking about? Like, that's not data. Data matters. You get on CNN and you're talking about your friends. That's what makes me not take you seriously as a human being. You can't be a pundit. You can't be a thought leader and get on TV and base the condition of Black America on how you and your friends are doing. That's not how it works. So, but that's what we have now. We have this chattering class of Black people that just get on TV and just say stuff. And it's almost hysterical. You saw the same thing with Charles Blow. Charles Blow was on going back and forth about Donald Trump with another Black man who was being respectful of him and was like, I don't know who you are. I shouldn't be on TV with you. You ought to be Donald Trump is a bigot. I know a bigot and you're supporting a bigot and all that stuff. It was just hysterical. So you have this hysterical group of Black people who just go on TV and say anything and don't base it on anything.
And I come back to the reality that the middle Black family, when you take out the family car, of 3 people is worth $1,700. And if we came up to even 10, 15, or 20, we're probably talking about like when you take out those durable goods, we're talking about 60, 70% of Black America. When we really get to the hard numbers and challenge even the numbers that I put up earlier in that chart and take out those durable goods that boost the numbers, it affects Black America entirely different than white America because white America has much more asset. And so when I look at Rye and her inability to know that, it questions my faith in why she's on television speaking as a Black person. because she's not speaking and Larissa speaking as a representative of our community. And I fundamentally deal with that in context of Dr. King and his model of making white America empathetic to our situation. What she doesn't realize is that her statement, probably the most problematic part of it, is that it makes a large section of white America apathetic to the plight of black America. Almost in a situation like, well, they have some blacks that are doing well, so we don't need programs. We don't need welfare and things that so many families rely on, because some blacks are doing well when there aren't some. It's few. Especially when you talk about young blacks, it's few. Like if we took the student data and applied it to young blacks, I believe that you would be shocked at how few young blacks are even positive at all, let alone large sections of them positive, meaning above $15,000 and $20,000.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. But what you have is a group of black people who, even if I take you at your word, you're doing well, you don't represent the masses. But you're speaking to the masses and you're saying, see, we're doing well. And it's like, no, you're doing well. And maybe and a sliver of black people are doing well. You don't represent us. Which leads me to ask, why is this person who doesn't represent black people on TV representing black people?
Yeah, I agree. And you know, I thought we had a lively discussion on your page. And I just thought it was something that needed to be addressed. Because when I look at the numbers, top 5% is 350. I guess her and her friends are all in the 350. Young, single, African-American females that in 5 years of working amassed $350,000 in worth without a house. I guess because they didn't have the time to buy the house. So they just did it through like, maybe they just bought a .com or something, you know?
Well, they're just basing it all on like salary. Like I have an okay salary. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my salary is bigger than the median salary in this country, which is in the 30s. So I'm middle class. Even
though I have $60,000 in student debt.
Yeah, I'm middle class though because I don't pay a lot on that student debt. I don't pay a lot on that student debt. I tell them people that I'm destitute right now and I can't pay back, and I take that money and go buy myself some clothes and buy myself a car. So I'm a member of the middle class. Like how we measure middle class is just so ignorant, and so that's what I see shining through when I hear people say that, because I know you went to school, and even though I don't know your story, I know 9 times out of 10 your parents didn't just pay cash for that.
Yep, especially if you're African American, because we have the numbers. It's a very few African Americans that can pay cash for school. Don't get me wrong, there's a few, and they're out there, but there's a few. Most of us get student debt, as I did myself. If we look at some of your posts, I mean, one of the, as we start to move towards the end of the conversation, I really enjoy your page. I think so many people do. BreakingBrown.com, make sure to visit it. But there's these lively discussions, and you posted some interesting stuff recently, and I just wanted to go through 2 of those, and then one of the ones that I posted that you shared, and just have a contextual discussion so people can understand what you meant by what you posted, because you posted sometimes in this cryptic kind of way, and then you let everybody else talk, and then you bounce in. So the first one is black people, and this is a post from posted. Black people mistakenly believe that wealth is about dollars. That's wrong. Wealth is not about green pieces of paper. Wealth is about connections, roots, structures, institutions, resources. So I wanted you to explain that for the audience.
I explained it with something that you said. You know, in the sense that all money don't spend the same. And we have this idea that, like, okay, if I get my hands on $1 million, which you probably won't, you know what I mean? But if I get my hands on $1 million, I am wealthy. I am in. And it's just like, even if you have $1 million, white people don't have to let you in. They don't have to let you in anywhere. Like if you say, I got this $1 million now, and I want to go to this community, right? And I want to buy this huge plot of land, and I'm just gonna get this. And you don't know anybody. You don't have a history
to get permits.
City
zoning
leaders, you don't know the zoning people, you don't know anybody. And these people have decided, no, we're gonna sell it to this other dude. We're going to sell it to this guy who's been wealthy. I know his family. He has connections in the community. You know, he can help me because his family has connections. You're new money. You know, and at a certain point, somebody's going to tell you you're kind of just a nigga with money. So, but we have this attitude that dollars, all that matters is
will
dollars.
solve everything. Yeah, we do. We kind of believe that dollars will solve everything, and we don't understand that They say after, I think it's like 60 million, everybody lives the same. And I'm talking about you can't live no better in this lifetime. And so then you question, what do people do with the money after $60 million? What does a Byron Allen or Oprah or what do they do? And like, what does Bill Gates do? And I think that we believe that we can grasp the concepts of it without really doing the hard legwork. You know, I write on inequality.org quite often, and one of the pieces that I wrote that really caught fire is black people in this country own less than 1% of the private, like, rural land. White people own 98% of it, worth 99% of the money of the value of all rural land. And I think that, you know, we digest that, but we don't digest the consequence of what that means in terms of opportunity, access, and power. When you don't own any of the land, you don't grow any of the food. That means you are basically at the beck and call of those people who do grow the food. And so, like, you know, it's a trip because in so many ways, Black America recreates its identity as though slavery didn't happen. And they think that they're being positive, and I call it disrespectful, because they say things like you can't let slavery hold you back, as though it's your choice. Slavery happened. That's so disrespectful to the millions of people that died through that whole period to say like they just let that happen to them. They didn't let that happen to him. You know, if they got off the boat and made a huckus, they might get they, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just so frustrating.
The thing that bothers me always about this sort of, you know, idea that we can't let slavery hold us back and we have to do for self is one thing. You know, the same people who say that are the same people who be like, I'm never voting for Trump. I'm never voting for a Republican. But you just made a very conservative argument. That's the Republican argument, that you should never rely on government and that you should rely on your own ability. And when you look at black people, our ability to do anything is limited. You have ability if you find a job to get up and go to work. But to say that is to make a Republican argument. So you don't realize that you are making Trump's argument, that you are ideologically aligned with Trump. You're not ideologically aligned with a liberal or a leftist. You're ideologically aligned with
Let alone black. You're not even ideologically aligned with Black history. No. Like fundamentally, this is the consequence of the post Cosby Show era. You know, this is a great like little section. I've shared this before, and me and you've talked about it. You know, the Cosby Show wasn't real. For them to have existed, they would have had to been multiple millionaires. What do you mean, Antonio? They worked as a doctor and a lawyer. Let me explain. Money hasn't always been the way it is today. Cheap. At one time, in the 70s, late 70s, black people couldn't even get money. But let alone if you were able to get money, it was high interest, 14, 18%. The house they showed the Cosbys in was worth $700,000 then in 84. You had to put 20% down back then. So you're telling me in $84, a black couple put down $100,000 and then paid a mortgage of $8,000 a month. Let me tell you what the equivalent of that is today with cheap money. Even with cheap money, that would be a black family that put down $500,000 cash on a house and then pay $18,000 a month. That house today is worth $8 million. So if you project yourself as middle class, and that is the middle class, that's how crazy you sound. A middle class family living in an $8 million house amidst a bunch of white neighbors. It wasn't middle class. It was the projection of black folks' greatest idea of what they wish they could be. It was the antithesis of good times. It was everything that we hope for, but none of the reality of our history. And that's just what it was. I know you wanted to be something else and you loved it and it made you feel so good, but what it's done in terms of your overall identity is kind of made you delusional. I did a piece called The Decadent Veil, and it was the start of the Decadent Veil in many ways. Would you agree?
No, I agree. And this is somebody who laughed at the Cosby Show when it was on. But when you look back at it, you realize they would have had to have been filthy rich. You know, they're not middle class doing well. If you knew a doctor and a lawyer who were black during that period, they weren't living in that house. So the Cosby Show kind of it kind of, put a needle into kind of our aspiration, because we're so aspirational. So it showed us, like, this is who we want to be. Oh my God, these people represent what I want to be. Even though, America knows that they haven't given us any of the tools to get there. They haven't given us any of the money to get there. They haven't opened any doors for us to get there. But let me give you this thing that shows you that you have arrived. Instead of creating a situation where you will arrive, instead of creating, policies that will help you arrive, I'm just going to give you a TV show that shows black people have arrived, and you can get pride out of that.
So these are the last two sections we're going to talk about, and the first one we're going to talk about is if black people. This is a section. This is again is a post from your page. If black people are not going to be meat for the grinder, what is our role? Since whole industries are built on our failure, what will be the reaction if or when they can't do that anymore? And that's in the reaction to Ferguson, to give it fair context, and what we saw with their ticketing situation that also is happening in Wisconsin, that's also happening in so many other places across the country, where we moved from a group that was basically agrarian labor, that sharecroppers, to basically taking on the job of being the fear, for being the people that go to jail and allow you then to tax white people a lot more. And if you don't want to do that job, you don't want to go to jail, what are you going to do? Is that a fair enough, like, contextual?
Yeah, it basically ties into, like you said, Ferguson and other places where, like, okay, we don't have any money, and this is how you know we don't have any money, when you see places like Ferguson saying, oh my God, since they're not taking advantage of poor people anymore, the police is cash strapped, they ain't got no money. So what does that mean? That tells you that black communities like that don't have money in terms of their tax base. You can't get money off property taxes and a whole lot of other taxes because we don't have any money. So what that means is that in order to get money, they got to lock you up. They got to fine you. They have to make your life miserable. They have to put you in jail in order to get money to police you. It's a cycle. So what happens when that's over? What happens when we say you can't do that to us anymore? What basically happens, either you don't have police and you don't have the things that you need in your community, because they've set this vicious cycle up to just keep grinding you and grinding you and grinding you. And I had somebody on my page say something like, on another post, well, you have to find a black person that white people need. And I can't get it through to black people that there's no black person that white people need. Like, but you need white people. You can't get up in the morning and turn on a light without white people. You can't get up in the morning and use the bathroom with toilet paper without white people. Like, you need them. There's no black person that white people need.
Yeah, and let me give context to that, because I also responded to that post as well. It was this idea that black celebrities are somehow more special because they have negotiation power with whites on an individual level. So, say for instance, me and Dr. Dre eating dinner, the white waitress comes over and is really nice because she wants a tip. So that white waitress needs Dr. Dre. That's stupid. And so, let me tell you why. What we're talking about is there's no black person in this country, in America, that controls a resource to the point where they can either shut that resource down or affect the price of that resource. Not chickens, not oranges, not oil, not telecommunications. Hello? Yvette? All right, not telecommunications. If we look to the second richest man in the world in Mexico, he controls the whole whole telecommunications in Mexico. So, I mean, this one Mexican man could shut down, like, Mexican telecommunications. Would he? No, he probably lose a lot of money, but I'm saying he has that ability. The highest black person in America can basically turn off some shows on television for a period of time. That's it. And so I just think that when you understand that, you understand, like, the limitations on being able to say you're more special, let alone more powerful than me as a black person.
Well, yeah, I think so. And I think that the conversation that we were having, we talked about Kaepernick, the 49ers, and his protest. And I think you can appreciate the protest.
Agreed.
But you can't say that the football needs him. Football, or the white people need him because he's a football player. White people need any football player because these are people that chase pigskin around and play in the dirt. White people don't have to have that. They can shut that down and just start something new. Like this idea that these people are necessary. No, they're not necessary. You can look at what he did and say, you know what? If you want to say, I appreciate that, but stop looking at these people as necessary as if they produce something that white America needs. This is a
core resource.
Game.
Yeah, a core resource, and it's like. It's sad because I think we've had so little. it's sad because I mean, if you look at the arc of Black America, you know, you wonder sometimes whether those fresh out of slavery knew more about like resources and resource development than we do now. You know, for all their lack of arithmetic and reading skills, they damn sure could produce some things on the farm or things of the sort. And like now with us, we can read and write, but then we know so little about like what people actually need to live. And I think as a result, we don't even know how to do the math on living. And so as we start moving to the end of the conversation, I'm gonna actually share a post that I posted that you shared, and I always appreciate when you share my posts. And people got real frustrated because the whole thing right now is bank black, and I've been quiet on that. But now it's time to just let people know, let people really understand how. Let people know how it doesn't make sense. Like from the numbers just don't add up. Normally when you okay, first I'll share the post. Let me share the post. For Black Americans to own less than 1% of private land and continually talk about black banks, it is one of the highest forms of economic delusion. The 5 largest landowners in America, all white, own more rural land than all of Black America combined. This tiny group, a band that would fit comfortably in any mid-sized sedan, owns more than 9 million acres, while all of Black America combined, over 40 million people, own just 8 million acres. And you can check that piece out on inequality.org as well. I actually published it there. And the point I was making is like fundamentally, the idea of banking sounds like something that we grasp until we really say something like bank black. This is the same group that challenges being called a monolith. that doesn't want to be monolithic. Bank black, but don't call, we're not monolithic when you talk about poverty. So when you talk about wealth, we can be monolithic, or the idea of wealth. And so like, I wanted to contextualize it on the end of this conversation just so you can understand what banks are. Also, so what is the function of a bank? Commercial banks play an important role in the financial system and the economy. As a key component of the financial system, banks allocate funds from savers to borrowers in an efficient manner. That's the purpose of a bank. Chase Bank has about $2.4 trillion. Bank of America has total assets of about $2.2 trillion. USAA, which runs commercials, is a smaller bank, and it has $150 billion. The largest black bank is around $600 million. And so like I really started to then want to look into, well, what did they perform like? Because let me also explain something to most of us that don't understand it. And again, I don't mean that in any condescending way. I'm saying this so you can understand what the purpose of a bank is in a more nuanced way. Is a small bank is supposed to perform better than Chase. That's why you would use them. They don't give you the same services. You can't take a picture of your check and it just go on your phone. So like this small bank isn't a place that you're supposed to go to all the time. It just performs real well. So what I did was I actually looked at the top 200, not just regardless of race, smaller banks and how they performed. And I'm going to pull that up for you. We're talking about 3 year ROAEs, 3-year ROAEs of 24%, 22%, all kind of numbers, 15, 18%. And it's just crazy because in so many ways, I think that we don't understand what that actually means. And so ROAE, just so everybody can get a context on it, we're talking about return on average equity, just so everybody understands these. Look at the yellow bar in this chart. Because now I'm going to flip over so you can see that I took 3 black banks of different sizes. When I say sizes, I mean from 600, one was 600, one's about 300, and the other one with $50 million, and it's supposedly a bank. And what you look at and you see is their ROAE is like 1%. 1%. So fundamentally, if you're somebody with some money, you're just sitting it there and not making no money on it. It just wouldn't even make sense for you to put that money there other than to say a black person is watching my money. Not because you're going I just don't understand the context of it. So what this challenges is the very concept of black banking, not just from the idea of how small these banks are, but also their performance themselves is just not there for them to justify their existence. And I guess in so many ways, this comes back to your key thesis of black people wanting to look good and feel good rather than be good. You know,
and it comes from people and the people who do have the black banks wanting to make money off black people too. You know, it's not necessarily about community. It's about, you know, you want to be rich too. That's kind of what black people who have, you know, the small sliver of people who, you know, we talk about make over 75, 200 people who run these black banks are saying, we want you to make me money. That's what I want you to do. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I want you to make me money. I'm going to tell you that this is good for the community and it's good for you. Really, it's not good for you. You're going to run around town collecting fees and doing all kind of stuff, and the bank's not near you, no branches. It's not good for you as an individual, but it helps me make money if you bring your money in. You know what I mean? It helps me get bigger. So, you know, that's what you have. So this idea of racial pride, you know, this is just something this is just how they market, you know, their product, which is, I have this bank. No, you have something, but I don't know if it's a bank.
We're monolithic selectively, just at certain times when people want to use it that way. And I think that's very problematic. And I guess, you know, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this. And I just wanted to kind of today go through some of the economics behind the statement that Trump said. In no way do I agree with like how it was said, nor do I think you agree with how it was said. But there's some real hard realities behind that. Everybody keeps asking me, and I know you get the question too, give me a solution. My solution is to know these numbers. I think that one of the things that I need for anybody who is watching this video that comes to that to really be honest about is be honest if you didn't know them. Because if you didn't know them and you just watched this video and you got those numbers, that's a solution. Because you've been living in a delusion in a way. And now these numbers help you to be able to really recast the idea of what your goals are so you can actually achieve them. What would you say?
No, I agree. I think that is part of the solution. I think another part of the solution is you really have to understand, like, not only like where you are, but like where did this come from, and understand that you are, whether you like it or not, you are the descendant of a slave, and that's where you come from. Like, stop trying to run away from this, man. It's not all about slavery. The numbers indicate that it still is, or you wouldn't have Latinos doing better than us in terms of wealth right now. When they, you know, we did the whole thing where it takes 200 some odd years for a black family now to get the wealth of a white family. For
today,
family, 80 some odd years.
Today.
Yeah.
So
today.
just share that. Let's make sure that everybody understands. There's a data that came out 2 weeks ago. This isn't Yvette again. This is my people over at inequality.org. They actually did a powerful report. I'm going to pull it up right now so you can go looking for it yourself. And what they showed is that it takes 228 years. It would take 228 years for a middle black family to reach the wealth level of a middle white family today. Not it would even out in 228 years for them to catch up to where they're at today. We don't know what the white family would do between now and 228 years as well. And for a Latino family, it only takes 80 years. It takes a third of the time. I mean, when you think about that's just crazy. But go ahead, I'm gonna let you get the last word.
No, the only point I want to make is that black people act like, and I hear this about black banks. Well, the black banks are small, but they can get big. Well, we can catch white people. Like, white people are not gonna stand still. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, we're in a period where wealth is calcifying at the very top. Unlike anything we've ever seen. You talked to me a lot about Thomas Pinckney and about his book Capital, and even if you don't watch it, just go and look at the video, you know, of him talking about wealth calcification. It's going to the top and it's staying stuck there. People at the top are hoarding money, and you're going to talk about how you're going to catch up in the greatest wealth income inequality that the world has ever seen. Are you a crazy person? Like, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it on that. I mean, that's just powerful. I appreciate you coming and talking to me again. Yvette Carnell, Breaking Brown, Your Black World, Antonio Moore from Tone Talks. Please share the video. Make sure that we get it out to our people, and feel free to comment. Feel to share it on Facebook. Let's get the dialogue going because it's necessary.